Hello Daily Drafters and welcome to the format follow-up video for Dominaria United. This format has been universally loved by most, but it is now unfortunately time to say goodbye in true Daily Draft fashion. What that means exactly is that in this video I will provide you with color pair tier rankings followed by my top 10 takes on the format. If you have any desire to draft Dominaria United again in the future, such as a flashback draft on Arena or at home with your friends, this will be a great video to reference to give you a quick reminder of how the format shook out and what to be looking for during your revisits. With that out of the way, let's dive into my tier rankings for the viable decks in the format. Starting with the tier 4 decks, we have black-red and green-white. As you will discover later in this video, even these two decks in tier 4 had the tools to win in DMU. The only reason I have these two decks at the bottom of the tier is because the synergy of these decks really relied on uncommons and rares, much more than the commons. Therefore, they would come together much less consistently. If you were lucky enough to pick up the uncommons and rares that these two decks needed, you could absolutely be successful with them. In tier 3, we have black-green, red-green, blue-green, and blue-white. The only one of these decks that I truly think belongs in this tier without a caveat is blue-white. I was suspicious of this deck from the get-go because a deck advertised as spells and creatures is a difficult balance to strike correctly, especially when there weren't many spells in the format that also made creatures. As far as the other three decks here, these decks were usually the base colors of the more popular and powerful 4 and 5 color domain decks, which we'll talk about here soon. It was very unlikely to end up just these three color combinations. You were usually splashing around all over the place with these combinations as your base, but if you did stick to just these combinations, that's when they would fall here in tier 3. In tier 2, we have red-white, black-white, blue-black, and blue-red. The low-to-the-ground red-white aggro deck was really powerful in this format, as was the Aristocrats-style black-white deck. Going wide was easy, and both of these decks took advantage very well. Blue-black was an excellent control deck in the format, and had access to tons of good removal and ways to control the board. Blue-red had two different versions between the aggressive tempo versions with cards like Balmor and Electrostatic Infantry, and the more controlling version with counterspells and Tolarian Terrors, and both were very good. And finally, the only tier 1 deck is the 4 and 5 color domain decks. It's surprising how consistently this deck came together. With the abundance of lands in each pack, there were plenty of opportunities to fix your mana and play all of the best cards that came your way. That being said, there was a decent chance that your draft could train wreck if you committed too hard to this strategy. If your draft pod was smart enough to snap up the dual lands early, you could be in a world of hurt when it came to your mana base. Now, we'll go ahead and dive into my top 10 takes on the format as a whole. Number 10. This format is extremely balanced. Most formats have a very clear worst color or several decks that are completely unplayable, but Dominaria United had neither. All 5 of the colors were very, very close to each other in power, and as I mentioned with the deck tier rankings, you could find success with just about any color combination you could put together. Number 9. 3, 4, and even 5 color decks are exceedingly viable. This is one of the first formats in a long time, not counting Streets of New Capenna, that playing more than 2 colors might actually be better than playing just a straightforward 2 color deck. This was also the first set that I'm aware of that it was possible to open more than one dual land in each booster pack. Because of this, that meant that your fixing was much easier to establish than in normal sets, letting you splash around for powerful cards. Number 8. The cycle of cost reduction commons are very important to the format. Just as signpost uncommons usually point us in a direction when you draft that specific color pair, these 5 cards at common defined what each of the colors was trying to do most in this format. Whether it be a high density of spells, creatures in graveyards, high power, or domain, these creatures help define each color and what you should be prioritizing as you draft them. Number 7. The official Daily Draft color rankings. In a very close 5th place is red, and that's mainly because it acted much better as a support color than a main color. In 4th is green, similarly because it was your base color in most domain decks, but not outstanding on its own. Number 3 is white, which is very narrowly edged out by black in second. And taking the top spot is blue, which had a very deep roster of good to great commons. Number 6. This format is not very bomb heavy at all. Now, that's not to say that there aren't very powerful rares in the format, because there are, but they can pretty much all be dealt with at common pretty easily. Arguably, one of the best rares in the entire set is Shieldred, and all it takes is an Extinguish the Light to deal with that. Now, if it went unchecked, you were pretty much done for, but it's not like it has hexproof or anything. It was refreshing to not get curb stomped by so many insane, unanswerable bombs, but at the same time, I might have liked to see a little more to have fun myself. Number 5. The official Daily Draft top commons in each color. In red, we have Lightning Strike. In green, there is Sunbathing Rootwalla. White is a surprise with Take Up the Shield. Black is a little tricky. I would honestly take either Extinguish the Light, Phyrexian Rager, or Urborg Repossession as the top common, depending on the deck and the situation. They're all very good. And in blue, we have Tolarian Geyser. Number 4. The Defender's deck is absolutely real. Led largely by Wingmantle Chaplain, this deck was incredibly powerful and definitely could come together. The presence of Shield Wall Sentinel at common really ensured that this deck had consistency and a way to tutor up its best card in Wingmantle Chaplain. Number 3. Pick orders change quickly in DMU. I could give you a ranking of all the commons of each color for this set that you could relatively follow with consistently for Pack 1 Pick 1, but as soon as Pack 1 Pick 2, those rankings should go right out the window. Depending on what you took with your first pick, you should then value different cards higher or lower than others. And while this is true with most formats, the synergies in DMU were so important that you really had to make sure your deck was a collection of synergistic cards and not just a collection of generically good cards. Number 2. This format feels more like Cube than any other previous set. For those of you that don't know what cubing is, its elevator pitch could be described as a curated collection of cards that you can put together to build your own draft set. When you draft a cube, it's usually centered around the presence of a bunch of lands that help you put together a great mana base that let you play all of the powerful cards you see in your cube draft. In DMU, because there are sometimes more than just one dual land in each pack, the draft experience felt a lot like cubing, in that you could set up a pretty good mana base with all the lands, and then just draft all the good cards in each color that your mana base was set up good to go. And number 1. This format is one of the greatest formats we've seen in recent memory. Obviously, this is subjective, but based on the general sentiment of the MTG player base, this format was a huge success. Between everything I've already mentioned, and the fact that this channel over tripled in size over the course of this format, it's clear that tons of people loved it, and we will certainly be sad to see it go. Thanks so much for tuning in to the channel for the life of Dominaria United, and if you didn't get to see that many drafts, or you just happened to discover this format follow-up video, go ahead and subscribe to the channel to get in nice and early on the next format, The Brothers War. We will be switching to The Brothers War later this week and into next week, beginning with a full card-by-card set review, among other set review content. Thanks again for being here, and I will see you soon for more daily draft content.